so many different stories of this aspect of, I don't want to look, I don't want to see it. But yet what happens is that we then become programmed to go from that startle all the way into the trauma response. And it happens in milliseconds because it's become our neural pathway that's been learned over time.
If you ever feel stuck in patterns that you cannot break constantly, like anxiety, feeling emotionally numb, or even exhausted, and you don't have a clear reason, you're probably dealing with something that most people don't understand, and that is a nervous system that is stuck in a survival state. Today, I'm talking with Dr. Aimie Apigian, a double board certified physician who has left conventional medicine after discovering that trauma is not just in your head. It is literally stored in your body cells, and she will walk us through what's actually happening inside your nervous system when you freeze, when you shut down, or when you just feel like you're going through the motions of life. We're diving deep into the biology of trauma, including a simple technique that you can practice right now to retrain your startle response and break those automatic patterns that keep you stuck in survival mode. Dr. Aimie, hi, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm really excited to be here. I feel like I am in the presence of someone who's great, who's on the cutting edge, who has foresight. And so it really means a lot for me to be here and in your company.
My heart is exploding. And my heart's also exploding because I'm excited to ask you these rapid fire questions that I wrote up for you. Are you ready? Rapid fire?
Let's do it.
Okay. Really quick. What is the biggest myth about trauma that keeps people suffering unnecessarily?
That it's only in their mind and not something that their body holds.
If you can't afford therapy, what's one technique that someone can start healing through trauma?
The most important thing that I would have someone start with, sleep.
Oh my God. It's so simple and unsexy.
Improve the quality of your sleep.
Improve the sleep. We're going to go
build in rhythms, go outside in the morning. Just, yes, like align yourself with your body's natural innate healing strategies. And there is so much that it can do on its own.
How can someone tell if they're stuck in a chronic freeze state?
A chronic freeze state, you will see the patterns of trauma. The patterns of trauma are ones where that trauma response is still engaging its survival mechanisms. There are 3. Dissociation is one of them. So you will feel some degree of disconnect. Disconnect from yourself is often what you will feel. Even disconnect from your life. You may feel disconnection from others, but that sense of disconnect from yourself. Maybe you don't recognize yourself. Maybe you don't like yourself. Maybe you don't know where the time has gone because you're that disconnected from your own life. The other 2 are this idea of immobilization, so just stuckness. You want something and you're not able to actually move forward in your life to get that, whether that's personal, professional, family, doesn't matter, just this idea of stuckness. And then the dysregulation.
Which we're going to talk all about.
We're going to talk all about
this whole dang podcast is going to be about it. All right, I have another one. If a parent notices that their child is always anxious, what's the first thing that they should address?
I always look for the reason behind. I'm not looking for the behavior. I'm not looking for the symptom. I'm not looking for the outburst. I'm looking for the reason behind it. So if they're freaking out about their shoes not being tied, well, what does that mean to them? What does it mean to them that they can't tie their shoes as fast as another kid? Or that everyone else has their shoes on and they don't want to. They want to be different. What's the reason behind it? That's what I would want them to go look at.
How long does it actually take to rewire your nervous system?
It can take as long as you want, Christian.
It does take as long as you want. That's a good way to put it.
The way that I see the nervous system is that neuroplasticity is one of the main factors that we need to utilize. But if you're not giving your body and your nervous system what it needs, it will never rewire.
Ever.
So ever.
And we're going to go into what it needs.
So it can take as long as you would like it to take.
Okay. We're out of the quick question, the island of quick questions. We're out. We're back on a boat now. Okay.
And I didn't answer them well. I've got like, well, it depends on this.
You got a lot. No, you got a lot. No, you got a lot. No. We already got our appetites tasted. We're ready to go.
Let's do it.
You are a double board certified physician in preventative medicine and addiction medicine. Okay. You have a whole other life. What was that whole other life? And I know that there was a moment where you said, I got to switch out. I'm moving to something bigger and grander, more in my purpose.
Yeah.
What was your whole other life about? And what was that moment like?
My whole other life was about being a doctor. And this was what I had always wanted. Even as a young kid, my parents tell me, oh, you were always talking about wanting to be a doctor. I remember growing up and wanting to just fix people, wanting to take away their pain. And so it was very natural for me to then throw myself into all of the science. And in addition to that, I have a master's in biochemistry and a master's in public health. So just this appetite for learning in order to be able to help people. And then I get into real medicine. Now, some people call it conventional medicine. I'm starting to call it corporate medicine.
Oh, I like that.
Because it's a business. It's no longer about really helping people. And when I started learning my own trauma healing, then I realized that all of my patients needed this aspect and insurance was not going to pay for it. The administration was getting frustrated with me because I wanted to spend more than 15 minutes with the patient. And I was prescribing things that weren't going to have them come back and need another appointment with me or need more medication. And their philosophy is, no, like we like the medication soup. The more medications they're on, the more money they make. And since this is corporate medicine, that is their incentive. And so what I was being trained and what I was being kind of, I want to say, forced into this funnel of what my job was is to take that pen and write a prescription for a medication on that piece of paper. And that no longer was what I saw, was how I could help them the most. I'm seeing actually they can do so much for themselves. I can teach them these somatic self practices. They don't even need me. And they will come back and tell me, Doc, my sleep is better. My digestion is better. I'm having moments of joy and happiness. And it wasn't because of a medication. And so my view of what would best help my patients started to become so different than where corporate medicine was wanting to take me, that it got to a point where I would physically have pain and a knot in my stomach and heaviness in my chest when I walked into that hospital because I felt so out of alignment with what I knew to be true. And physically, my body wouldn't let me do it anymore.
Isn't that crazy? A lot of us are in jobs and everyday occupations, even relationships where our body is screaming at us. Your body, and you were sensitive enough, you had that interoception that told you, get out. This is not the model. And it's funny because the mind will tell you, no, this is what you have to do. This is where you have to go. So how did trauma work, nervous system work, start creeping up into something that wasn't seemingly anywhere in that realm?
For me, it did not creep in. It came in with a huge bang.
It came with a huge bang. Okay, how did it come in? Kool-Aid guy, I feel like coming through the wall. That's what I see in my head.
It was like the monster that drops out of the sky. It's like, whoa, life is different from this moment on. And for me, that was becoming a foster parent.
Okay. And this happened during medical
school?
Okay. Medical school, this young boy, Miguel.
Yes.
4 years old, did you?
4 years old.
Okay. So you adopted Miguel at 4 years old. First of all, was it that you always wanted to adopt? Did you want it to become, were you knew that you wanted to be a mother right then and there? Like, what was that pull towards adoption?
Do you want the nice political correct answer?
No,
do you want
real
the real
deal,
answer?
authentic, the real stuff.
Christian, as I look back, I see that I was carrying so much trauma that this was my way of trying to prove myself. That this was my way of adding more onto my life in order to be worth something, to matter. And yes, there are all the other reasons that I can say of, well, I want my time to be well spent. I want to make a difference with my life, which is all true. And looking at how I used to navigate my life, it was so full of coming from a place of trauma, not actually coming from a place of authentic healing and wholeness. I was still trying to find something that would make me whole rather than already feeling that sense of wholeness myself.
Do you think a lot of people are having kids just based on that somatic feeling?
I think so. I think that this somatic feeling of trying to find something that we're lacking drives most of what we do.
So here you are with this drive towards wanting to really prove that you can do this or just feel better about yourself. You foster a young boy, adopt a foster child, 4 years old. What happened? What was the magic there? How did that young boy unanticipatedly shift who you are?
It changed everything. So I take Miguel on. And, you know, when I brought him into my home, I was all in. My heart was so wide open. I had no idea what was coming.
Mm-hmm.
Many people may not like to hear this, but he had been broken to the point where he did not trust me. He did not trust me to not also break his heart, to not also abandon him.
At 4 years old.
At 4 years old.
Expressing this.
And how he expressed that was not only with his behaviors, but with a lot of rage, aggression, a lot of hurting me and intentionally hurting me. And we don't want to think that a young child that young would already have gone through so much, that they would already be so damaged that they would intentionally choose to hurt someone, especially someone who was trying to help them. But he would bite me, punch me, kick me, poop on me, pee on me.
Whoa.
We would sit at dinner and he'd be 2 feet from me and he'd pick up his plate and throw it right at my head with food on it, throw the silverware right at my head from 2 feet away. This was the reality of what I was living with. It was not what I had expected.
Right.
I had expected to come in and save this little boy.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted a mother. I would be that mother, and it would just be the
perfect match.
And his heart would be healed and my heart would be full. And this was the farthest from being a mother or from the reality of what I thought it meant to help a hurting child than what it was. And it's then what led me down to finding anything that would work. So I'll touch on that in a moment, but there was one moment in particular that I share that really brought me to my knees and really forced me to do something different than what I thought I had signed up to do. And one August afternoon, I had just come home from the hospital. I take him outside, play with him, roughhouse with him. You know, he's a boy. He needs all that stuff. So I do that stuff as soon as I come home, because I also know that if I don't do that, there is so much resentment and anger that he has just because I wasn't there all day with him. So I couldn't even go to my job without being punished by him because he was receiving it as, you abandoned me. But when I was with him, he also hurt me. So it didn't matter what I did. There was this constant rejection. And it led to this moment in a rocking chair where I'm holding him and his head is in my elbow. I'm holding him as if he were a newborn. So he's kind of, spread out over my lap. And I'm doing the gentle rocking for that attachment and bonding stuff that I now know that I need to do. And I'm looking in his eyes, not saying a word. Sometimes it's just best to not say anything when you just might poke the bear. So you just don't say anything. But it was this moment of real peace for me and an outpouring of my love. And I would very intentionally put my heart into my eyes so that my eyes would be communicating love to him and not anything else. And in that moment, he looks at me and he says, "Mommy, I'm going to kill you tomorrow. Not today. Tomorrow, Mommy." And then he tells me his plan for how he's going to do that. He's actually thought through this. And he was going to start by poking my eyes out with a stick. Now, as I did my own trauma work later on, I came to understand that what he was really saying was that the love that I see in your eyes is what scares me. I want to poke your eyes out. I would much rather not be seen. I would much rather be able to hide. Would much rather you not see me, because I think that if you see the real me, you would leave me. You're not going to like me, just like all the other families and my birth mother before you. Not knowing any of this yet, this was my journey to really seeing the impact of trauma
Mm.
and really understanding that you can't just change your environment and you be changed. It's an inside job. It also requires changes on your outside environment, absolutely. But there's more to it than that. And that's where I realized I have misunderstood trauma. I have downplayed trauma. In fact, even in my own life, things that I've been through, I've said, oh, that was just a stress. That was just stressful. And I've downplayed the impact that it had on my body until I got really sick. But I see so many of my patients doing this as well, downplaying the stress that they've been through, not realizing it's had a much deeper effect, a lot of damage to their body than what they have acknowledged.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that story. I mean, that's really potent. You went through a lot with your child in the beginning.
Well, this is what then changed everything for me, because you can't have a moment like that and continue to be the same person.
Yeah, you can't. And so, and this is, it's funny, we're not even getting into like the science and trauma and nervous system, because this is like, I really want the real life experience of it. And so over time, like, how did the relationship begin to heal? What happened? It's no secret we are swimming in a bed of invisible signals, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, 5G. It's everywhere. And I want to tell you what's fascinating from the biological standpoint. Some research is suggesting that these EMF signals can actually flip on tiny calcium channels in your cells, which are allowing too much calcium to flood in. Well, when too much calcium builds up, it creates cellular stress. It throws off your entire balance of your system. Now, magnesium is one way of balancing that intracellular calcium. It keeps those channels in check. And magnesium, we know, helps maintain that delicate balance of calm and steady. And here's the kicker: when you're constantly exposed to EMFs, your magnesium burn rate actually increases. Your body goes through it faster than usual, and most of us are already running dangerously low. 70% of us are deficient. And even to make things worse, most magnesium supplements on the market only contain 2 basic forms that your body is barely absorbing. I've been so excited. I've been talking about Magnesium Breakthrough by Bioptimizers. It's never just another magnesium. It's the only formula that actually contains all 7 forms of magnesium, each made to support different areas of your life, like stress, resilience, sleep quality, and just overall energy. And because it's formulated for optimal absorption, your body's gonna actually love taking it in. I take it daily, 2 times in the night, 1 time in the morning. It's better for my bowels, it's better for my nervous system, it's better for my sleep. And in a world where we're exposed to electromagnetic frequencies all the time, you gotta support your cellular magnesium. Go to bioptimizers.com/DRG. Use the code DRG to save 15% off. They're so confident they even offer a 365-day guarantee, so there is no risk. Try it out, bioptimizers.com/DRG, and the code is DRG. Let me talk to you something that has been a total game changer in my home, and it's probably not what you think. It is an air purifier, because what we breathe in matters as much as what we eat or drink. And air quality in our homes can be filled from everything from mold spores to pollen to smoke to allergies. And air purifiers are so important. Most of them are going to be in plastic boxes, make a lot of noise. And then I discovered the JASPR. The JASPR was brought to me by my sales team, and they said, this is a fantastic air purifier. And I looked into it, and it was true. I love it so much that I got the founder on. And what immediately caught my attention is the design. It's so many of the air purifiers are clunky, antiquated looking, 90s looking, and this is sleek, quiet, and powerful. But here's what really got me. It's built with steel, not plastic. So we're talking about machines that are actually built to last. So JASPR handles everything from smoke to mold to pollen, all the allergens that make you feel terrible without you even realizing why. Whether you're dealing with seasonal allergies, live in an area that is susceptible to wildfires or smoke, or just want the cleanest air possible in your home, get this. I am confident that you will love it. It has a lifetime warranty. Yes, lifetime. That tells you everything you need to know about the quality and engineering that goes into these units. Since I've been using my JASPR for about a year now, I have 2 running. One's on the first floor, one's on the second floor. I have 3 actually. 1 first floor, 2nd, 3rd floor. And I've noticed cleaner air, better overall sleep, and just an overall sense that my home environment is clean. The air is nice. We tested it. We have people come in and test the air, and they say the air is super clean. Thank you, JASPR. Go to jasper.co/DRG and use the code DRG for $200 off for a limited time. That is JASPR.co/DRG. The code is DRG.
I had him for 6 years. And it was the hardest 6 years.
Mm.
And the end was what broke me, what finally led to my body becoming so burdened down with grief and loss and pain that I developed several health conditions as a result. But that process was then me diving into learning everything that I could about attachment. But here's what was different now. Up until that point, I had been learning in order to help my patients, in order for me to be a better doctor.
Yeah.
And now I'm learning because I need to know what to do right now as he's telling me that he wants to kill me. Mm-hmm. It's no longer theory. It's no longer evidence-based, the meta-analysis of, a topic. No, I need to know what to do.
Really?
And I need to know what to do as quickly as possible, because the more that he grows up, not only the more dangerous that he becomes for me at his unhealed stage, but I'm losing time. And he may go through his whole childhood without having a happy experience if I don't figure this out for him. Mm-hmm. So it really motivated me to look at the science in a different way. And no longer just look at it as, well, what does the evidence-based studies tell me? I'm looking at it, does it work? Does it work right here in the real home, in the real experience with a real person? That's what I want to know. And I found out that a lot of stuff that we have is junk.
Really?
Yes.
We got to go into that.
So that's, I go through medical school only to realize I'm not sure how much of this I can actually use, because when I go to apply it, it's not actually creating the health and the wholeness that I want for him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You got sick.
I got very sick.
What happened in 2014?
Yes.
What happened?
My body's having a response just to remembering that time. So the end of that story is that I eventually did find all the pieces for Miguel. I still look back and I'm like, I don't even know how I did it. I don't know how I pushed through to do all of that. It was more than any 25, 26, 27-year-old would normally know how to even navigate. So I look back and I have a lot of compassion on myself, but to realize that I actually found all of the pieces that he needed. And we had an amazing healing of our relationship. And he was the person that I knew that he really was inside. And I was able to see that, and he was able to be that. It's the most beautiful thing. Hopefully one day we'll be able to share that story. Mm-hmm. But at that time, I am still a single mom, and I'm now in general surgery residency.
Oh, Lord.
And I'm never home. And if I am home, I'm sleeping, because I'm just coming off maybe of a 12-hour shift, maybe a 30-hour shift, because we were doing every third night was call. And I'm up working. I mean, it's not like maybe family medicine call not to knock on the family medicine
people.
But general surgery call. And at that time, I was doing emergency room, so we were doing all of the ER. And there's a lot of emergencies that happen. There's a lot of car accidents. There's a lot of accidents, and those generally happen at night. And so there was a lot of busyness, and I was so exhausted. But what made it hardest for me was seeing that I could not be the mom for him that he needed. Mm-hmm. He was just coming through this amazing healing time. He needed someone present.
Yeah.
I couldn't be present. And I made the hardest decision I've ever made, to adopt him out to another family. Mm-hmm. And the grief of that is what then led to, a few weeks later, me waking up one morning and not even being able to get out of bed.
Wow.
And I hadn't even realized what all was building underneath the surface, because I had been so focused on him, so focused on just getting through every day, just one foot in front of the other, wake up, go into the hospital, do your thing, come back, try to figure out how we're going to survive with Miguel. And the grief, it was so much grief around even the loss of the future that I had wanted to have with him. It wasn't just the loss of that relationship. It was the loss of the future that I had envisioned and anticipated and planned for, that he had been invested in now. And we were talking about what we were going to do in the future. And it was the deepest grief I have ever been through. And I didn't know how to process grief. I didn't know how to move through grief. I hadn't even dealt with my own trauma yet. And so that was then what my body said, no more. I can't do this anymore. I can't hold any more of your trauma and keep going. And what I ended up developing was chronic fatigue, depression, anxiety. They called it burnout, gave me 3 months medical leave. But then that's also when we found the autoimmunity. And that, all of that together was then how I realized that whether I knew it or not, whether I accepted it or not, even whether I had memory of it, my body was holding more trauma than what I had realized. And I had never been one to say that I had had trauma, especially compared to Miguel.
Yeah.
He's got the trauma.
Right.
Who am I? My childhood was nothing compared to his. So it really, for me, came out of the blue, which was really then what precipitated me into my own healing journey and all of my discovery around the biology of trauma.
Yeah. I mean, it's like all the conditions have been set forth throughout your life to shift your course, but you had to go through this really deep, dark place and start moving through it. Are you in touch with Miguel at all? Do you know about the family? Do you know anything?
I know the family well. So in 2011, I had actually founded a nonprofit to teach other adoptive families what I had learned with Miguel. Not that I had figured things out yet, but I had learned a lot. And what I had learned was working for other families. Their children maybe weren't as severe. And so it was working really well for them. And so it was a really meaningful thing for me to do, to already start that teaching. And they were a family that had come a couple times to my weekend family camps. So I knew them well, which is why it gave me that peace of mind that I knew that I was making the best choice for him that I could at that time.
Pain and purpose.
It didn't take away the pain.
Yeah.
And the pain was so deep. It felt unbearable.
Wow. That's a story to start off a podcast. I'll tell you that much. You mentioned that you really started coming into understanding trauma. When we hear this word trauma, it's sort of this umbrella term where we're just like, you have trauma, I have trauma, and I do trauma work, I'm trauma informed. I want people to understand what the heck is happening in our cells, what's happening inside our body when we are in that state of stress. And what is trauma in that sense then? How do you define it?
I didn't know any of this. And then I started my own training in trauma therapy. So imagine this, I'm a physician, I'm a medical physician. I'm about as hardcore, conventional trained medicine as they come. I've just been through general surgery residency.
That's the most hardcore you're going to go.
That's the most hardcore and the most scientific rigor that you're going to get. And then I'm like, I want to be more skilled in trauma. I'm still working with a few kids. And so I really start to lean into the somatic piece. Was not a piece that Miguel needed as much of. And so I really wanted to dig deeper into that. So I decide that I want to go and get trained in somatic work. And I start with somatic experiencing. And the moment that I show up, my body starts giving me strong messages. I was not yet as in tune with my body to even understand, but I definitely could feel like there is some restlessness, there is some discomfort. This feels really uncomfortable to be here. And I still remember that first case study that I went with Peter Levine, and I'm watching him work with another person, another nervous system, and my nervous system is going crazy. It feels like it's being exposed. It feels like it's being vulnerable. And I am navigating this inner turmoil and chaos that is happening, not even understanding why. And then I completely dissociate and my mind wanders off and who knows what I'm thinking about. And then it doesn't come back until like another 10 minutes. And then I'm like, what's happened while I've been thinking about, my to-do list or, my work tomorrow. And as I continued my somatic training, I continued to notice that pattern, like the inner response of my nervous system. And it was that feeling of I'm being exposed and it doesn't feel safe to be exposed, to be seen. And that was the moment when it would disconnect, when it would dissociate. I had no idea how much I had been living my life dissociated.
No.
And I'd never used that term because, of course, in medicine, we tend to just call it multiple personality disorder, right? Like that level of dissociation, not like the everyday, my mind is just overwhelmed and it doesn't want to be in my body right now. It doesn't want to feel any of these feelings right now. And that was when I realized there is something happening inside my body that's not just stress. Because I can feel the stress. Believe me, I'm in surgery. I know stress.
Sure.
And I know that stress is what helps me. Stress helps me perform better. It's what allows me to go to the emergency room and to know exactly what to do, to remember those protocols, to get everything done, to prepare them for surgery as quickly as possible, and to do life-saving measures. If I weren't stressed, I wouldn't be able to do that. It would be a much more laid-back process. And let's sit and chat about this. What really happened out there on the freeway?
Right.
So I'm realizing that as I study my own nervous system, that I have 3 different levels of energy. I never studied my nervous system to this degree to really understand that. And I had been taught, like everyone else is, well, there's just the ventral vagal or parasympathetic, and then there's sympathetic. And those are the 2 states of your nervous system. And realizing that I've got this other 3rd state that I seem to go into.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is, but I seem to do it a lot. So I should probably figure it out. And I started mapping out my responses and my energy level. And there was one moment in time when for the very first time, I actually saw my body go into a trauma response. And that's when everything clicked. I'm standing in front of my attending surgeon. He's big, he's male, he's got blue eyes just like my father. And he, just like my father, is tearing into me about something that I had done wrong, something that I had forgotten, something that he wanted me to do differently. I don't remember what it was because in that moment, I felt my body go through all the steps of the trauma response that I lay out in my book now, where it's that startle of, uh-oh, he's upset about something. I don't know what it is. Oh, shoot. Like this is really that stress. But then quickly moving into that realization that I'm trapped because I can't walk away. I'm not allowed to walk away. In residency, you're not allowed to walk away from someone, from your attending who's yelling at you. I have to stand here and take it, just like when I was a little girl with my father. And I felt my energy completely bottom out. And now it was all of a sudden hard to just, stand. Yes, I was still standing. There's no evidence on the outside of what was happening on the inside. And my body went all the way down into that heaviness, that fatigue, that shutdown place. And that's the trauma response. And now that I understand that that is happening at the cellular level, at the mitochondrial level, that it makes so much more sense of why there can be these immediate state shifts, these immediate shifts in my energy, because it's my nervous system guiding the process and saying, right now, we can't survive this. We can't escape this. So we should just stand here. And in order to stand here and take this, we have to go to this place where we just don't care. We're not really here. We dissociate a bit. We're not even really listening to what he's saying at this point. We just know that he's really upset and I can't escape. And it's putting me back into this shameful place of, not only did I make a mistake, but I am a mistake. And so that is how I really came clear on what is the inner experience of stress and trauma and how they are very different states in the body, down to the mitochondrial level that's determining our energy level, our metabolism, and what it's doing to help us make energy or conserve energy.
So the cells in the body are always listening to the nervous system signals. And they're responding accordingly. And that's a beautiful example that I think a lot of us can relate to. We were all little kids and we were all getting yelled at one of our parents at some point. And it's quite interesting how it just keeps perpetuating through our life and our system. And it's even more interesting when we're presented with these opportunities and people who remind us of the very thing that needs healing. That's like the whole like magical, like woo-woo side of it, like attraction and universal components together. But, you know, it's awesome, like beautiful synchronous orchestra of like, hey, here's an opportunity to heal.
Right.
Here's an opportunity to know that you are safe and in your own sovereign self. And so really powerful and potent stuff. And you mentioned in your book that you really talk about this freeze response. And a lot of people don't know what freeze response is. A lot of people know, oh my God, I'm stressed. My heart's beating. I need to run away. I need to survive. And it's not how I felt when I was just chilling and relaxing and digesting my food and just, And we know those states, like you mentioned, but that freeze state is really important for us to understand what's happening in our nervous system. Is it shutting down? Is it shutting down, but it's activated at the same time? And you said dissociation. Is that the thing that happens when we freeze? Do we just start thinking about our to-do list?
I love talking about the freeze response. It is one of the most unique moments in the human body. And when we look at just how the human body is designed, its anatomy, its physiology, there's this wisdom and beauty to it that allows us to see that this unique moment of the freeze is a very key moment in our life, and then why our body can hold on to that and it become a chronic functional freeze. When we are stressed, the stress is in response to some demand, a challenge. Doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be a good thing. It can be, we're training for a marathon. We're going to go run a marathon. Or for me, I'm at work. I need to do a surgery. There's this idea that there's an increased need for energy. I need a higher level of energy. I need a higher level of attention. I need a higher level of performance. And that's what the stress response is. The stress response is an up-regulation of my energy. So the stress response actually makes me superhuman. It's when that mother can lift a car off of her child.
Yeah.
And yet, when would she ever be able to do that?
Right.
So that's what the stress response gives us, a superhuman amount of energy. But then what happens if what we can do is not enough? What happens if we do our best and the problem is too big for us? We hit the wall. And that wall is a very critical moment because it's what creates and causes the freeze response. So what is the wall? The wall is if it's the moment where it's inescapable. We have run up against a wall and there's no climbing over the wall. There's no going around the wall. The wall is there and we have hit the wall. And so whatever danger is chasing us, whether it's a tiger, whether it's our own background and insecurities, doesn't matter. That problem is now inescapable. And that's a really key moment because what will create the freeze response is a very specific perception. And it's the perception of an inescapable life threat. If it's not a life threat, okay, I'll be able to let it go. You know, we've got the let them theory, you know, whatever. It's not going to threaten my life. But if it's a life threat and it is now inescapable, my survival strategy is no longer to fight. It's no longer to run. It's no longer to run away, run towards or run away. No, because all of that is useless. And so the wall is this moment where nothing that I could do could make a difference. I am completely trapped, completely powerless. And this is an inescapable life threat. In that moment, our nervous system says, well, there's only one chance for us surviving this, and that's to stop. And so even while we have this adrenaline coursing through our blood that would normally move us to take action, that's the stress response, we now have thrown on the emergency brake. And so all of that adrenaline is not effective. It's still there, but it's not creating the change that it normally would because we have something that more powerful that is just turned on. And that's the emergency brake. That's this trauma state that our nervous system can direct things to. And in that moment, it does engage all of that aspect of, I need to stop you from moving. I need to stop you from breathing, but I need to barely keep you alive. I don't want you to actually die, but I need you to be so still and so quiet and so cold that you wouldn't be noticeable. And so there's that element of paralysis. Now, it's an inner paralysis. It's not always the outside paralysis. And this is where a lot of people can misunderstand the freeze response and think, well, I don't think I had a freeze response. When I went through the motions, they told me to hand over my bag and, they were robbing me and I handed over my bag. How was that paralysis? On the inside, you were paralyzed, which is why you then went along with whatever they told you to do. So it's not an external thing. It's an internal response. And it's the internal response that our breath stops. Do we actually stop breathing? Well, no, because then we would die and our nervous system's job is to keep us alive. So now all of a sudden we're walking this really fine tightrope of don't die, but stay barely alive. So what happens to people's breath is in that freeze moment, it's a full inhalation. And when you think of the freeze moment as being a shock to you that you can't believe what is happening, it's going to be that full inhalation. That's the freeze response. In the stress response, you're breathing fast. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. And then the shock happens. It's the unbelievable moment, unbearable moment, the shock that you can't actually overcome this. It's the full inhalation. So that's why the freeze response in that, as it is, in that physiology is not sustainable because you can't stay in that full inhalation, which is why once you reach the freeze, the shutdown will come because your body needs to stay barely alive and let down some of that full inhalation.
Powerful. I mean, that's a great way to illustrate the freeze response for people to understand how it's connected to the fight and the flight. It's all sort of a progression and evolutionary. And so a lot of us, I know, I really resonated when you said like kind of going through the motions. You're just like kind of frozen. You're hardly not breathing. That's happened in life, and I've seen that in life. And so hearing that, and I'm sure people viewing, listening can really resonate with that as well. Okay, so now we have this freeze response that I know a lot of us know what that's like. You said it's not sustainable though,
right?
Because your energy's still, you're frozen internally, but your heart's still beating. You're still in that sympathetic response, correct?
You're both. You're both sympathetic and dorsal vagal. I don't know if we want to introduce the
we're going in right now. We're going now. So you're sort of about to collapse into this state.
Exactly.
It's a blended, it's a weird state.
It's the only time that our physiology is both the gas pedal and the brake at the same time.
Oh my
It's
Lord.
just that the brake is more powerful than the gas pedal. And so all of that adrenaline that you're secreting isn't doing anything except creating that high panic that is part of what paralyzes you.
So then that's not sustainable. What has to happen after that freeze response that is experienced in the body, and why does it happen?
So then there's this shutdown. You can call it collapse, letting down. It's the sense that, Christian, it feels awful. It feels like giving in and giving up. Even though that's not what you really want to do. Your mind doesn't want to do that. Your mind is still fighting back. How dare they do this to me? But your body has moved into this place of heaviness, and it feels like you've given up. And what's happened is that your body, your nervous system has said, no, we really need to conserve our energy. So we are only going to use the amount of energy that we need to in order to still stay alive. But we're not going to use any extra energy for anything else because there might be a chance that at some point our opportunity to escape, to overcome, might come back. And if it's going to come back, I need all the energy that I can have. And so it's this very uncomfortable place to be. There's a lot of shame in that place because we don't like ourselves in that place. We much prefer the version of ourselves where we're solving problems, where we're taking action, where we're standing up for ourselves. But in this place, your body won't let you. And in fact, the more that you try to do that, the more that your body will scream back at you and say, that does not feel safe, because your body is trying to help you survive. And this is how it knows to survive, to conserve your energy. Even just today, I was talking with someone and they referred back to a time in their life when their pet of 17 years passed away. Then the next day, his wife passed away. And then 3 months later, something else happened. I don't remember. But he said that it was so much that he went into a depression for 6 months. This is the power of the body, where your mind can say, we understand, they were at the time of their life. It was their time to go. Our mind can rationalize these things, but for our body says, whoa, this is too much for me to understand. This is too much for me to process. This is too much for me to feel all of this right now. And so we literally, it's like going into hibernation. I'm just going to shut down. I'm just going to hibernate until I have the time and the safety to be able to start to feel these things and to process them and to move through them. And then I'll kind of open back up to life again. So that's what the shutdown step feels like. That's what the trauma state feels like. It feels like a closing off from life.
I can't help but envision the evolutionary aspect. If there was a gazelle running away from a lion, can you illustrate the states of the nervous system if the lion is running away and it catches it?
Yes. And there's actually an aspect of this that many people don't realize. So I'm excited to go here. The steps that will lead the body into a trauma response always start with a startle. And that startle is actually really important. And if I could only teach one thing as a preventive medicine physician, it might be how to respond the right way to your startle responses. The startle is the moment when we first realize something might be wrong. So if we're a gazelle, we smell something, and it's not the smell of grass. But for them, that's usually what they're going to sense first. Their smell is so spot on for their survival. They might see something, they might hear something. Those are also possibilities. And this is true for us as well. We are collecting information through our senses, and then our senses is what tells us, something might be off here. Something might be wrong here. And whether that's because we see someone, we just don't like the way they look. They're walking towards us in a way that, they might mean harm. Or someone gives us a look. Oh, shoot, what did I forget? I obviously forgot something, or they wouldn't give me that look. We get our information from our senses for what might be wrong. So that's the startle. Now, when you look at the startle in a gazelle, their energy immediately increases and they become hyper-focused, hyper-vigilant. Why was that? Is that a real danger? Do I need to run? They don't know yet. That's why they're not running yet, because they don't know if it's a real danger yet. And so their ears go up, their senses heighten. This is a really important aspect around our startle response. Our senses heighten so that our body is collecting even more information. Our pupils generally widen so they can even collect more information about our environment. This is the moment. It has about 15 seconds for it to decide, is this a real danger? Or no, that was just my kid jumping out from behind the corner to startle me. We have 15 seconds. That's it. And that's because of the hormone noradrenaline that gets released in our tissues. But adrenaline is really that stress hormone that will move us to action. And that's coming on at 15, 30 seconds. So if you don't know if something is a real problem after 15 seconds, well, then that is a real problem. Think about that. If you don't know if it's a problem, then it is a problem. Not knowing is the problem. And so for a gazelle, if they still don't know, they're going to start running just to be safe, just to make sure that, okay, that was not a real danger. But in this case, I'm so sorry, gazelle, it is going to be a real danger. And now the tiger is chasing them. So now they are in the full stress response. As we've already mentioned, this is where they are super gazelle, right? Like we go superhuman, they go super gazelle. They run faster than they ever run before. They run faster than they knew that they could run.
Yeah.
And it's all for the purpose of overcoming. It's the same thing for us. Our stress response is like a sprint. We are running full force because we know it's not only about finishing this race, we have to win the race if we're going to survive. That's the same for them. Their stress response is, I've got to outrun this problem. I've got to be faster than this danger. Everything in their body shifts inside in order to help them accomplish that. Everything from their blood flow to their mitochondria to shutting down their detoxification system, their digestive system, everything has shifted just for one single purpose, help them survive, which is why the stress response is unsustainable. And that is what happens with the gazelle. Their stress response is unsustainable. So at some point, they're going to start slowing down. They can't run at that pace forever, just like we. Some stress is good. Stress at times is very good. It's what actually we need to grow. But we can't sprint indefinitely. We've got to be able to give our body the rest that it needs, and then it can do another sprint. But if we try to always sprint, our bodies are going to give out. That's what starts to happen to the gazelle. They are running their hearts out. But with this gazelle in this story, they're not going to get away, and they start slowing down. And that's the moment that they realize that they're not going to make it. When they realize that they've reached their capacity, they don't have anything more to give. They've given their best, and their best is not good enough. They will go into the freeze response before the tiger actually touches them. We all have been taught that the tiger pounces on them and then they go into the freeze. That is not true. They run until they realize, I can't outrun this tiger. And then they freeze, and microseconds later, the tiger pounces on them. So it's the same thing for us, where we are going to reach that wall when we perceive that our capacity is not enough for the problem in our life. It's not that it's true, and it's not that it actually has happened already. It's our perception of, I don't have what it takes for this one. This is bigger than what I can handle. And so they're going now into that freeze response. Now the freeze response for them is really helpful, as it is for us. A lot of endorphins are released in the freeze response, which means that with the endorphins, with the disassociation, they don't feel the physical pain, which is a comfort to me. And that's the same thing for me. When I notice myself going into that freeze and then the shutdown, there's a numbness that settles in. And I just don't care as much. I'm not as angry. I'm not as hurting. I just feel numb. Unfortunately, we can't just numb the uncomfortable feelings. Everything gets numbed. So the joy gets numbed. The happiness also gets numbed. But the numbing is part of the trauma response. And so that gazelle initially has that freeze moment, and then it goes into the shutdown, so that as the tiger is doing its thing, it's not caring and it's not feeling. So it's completely surrendered, which is a weird way to say this is how we're trying to survive. But we survive by surrendering. And then the hope for that gazelle is that the tiger will lose interest, or will see another gazelle and think, hey, I could have 2 for 1 today. Go chase the other gazelle. And in this case, the gazelle's like, oh, I'm so glad I shut down, because now I have that energy that I conserved by not trying to run longer than what I did. I shut down when I realized I couldn't overcome this danger. And now I've got the energy to run away again.
There's a small conservation of energy that if like the tiger gets distracted, or there's a moment where it can run away, it can run.
Exactly. But if it's used up all of its energy before that, it's not going to have the energy to do that.
So we have the same evolutionary,
isn't that crazy,
ladder that we move through.
Yes. And so what is important for people to know is that it's your perception of the problems in your life. It's not the reality of how big the problems are. It's not the reality of what kind of problems they are. It's your perception of the size of the problems in your life and whether you have the capacity to overcome those problems or not.
When we think about that startle response, and something we don't talk about enough in nervous system, why is it so important then? Is it a matter of, is it what you said, that the 15 seconds that there could be a problem, there is a problem if we don't figure it out? Is there a way that we can modulate that startle response? Is there a mindfulness technique where we can go, okay, I'm not going to go into, I know that this is like just a thing that is not going to kill me. I'm not going to go down that whole sympathetic path and then just break down and then collapse. Is there a moment in a startle response where we can actually change the way we respond?
We need to.
We need to,
because what is happening is that without that, it's like a train. The startle response starts the train. And unless we can stop the train, it becomes the runaway train that will take us all the way into stress and all the way into the trauma response. So our moment to say, no, that's actually not a real problem that I want to use my energy for, we need to decide that and be able to redirect our nervous system very quickly for it to not become the runaway train.
Gotcha.
Now, how would we do that? Our body is designed to do that with our sensory system. And one of the aspects that I see people, it's part of their chronic functional freeze, is that they're afraid to look at the problem. For example, you get a notification on your phone that an email has come in from somebody, and you know they really shouldn't be emailing you right now. And with that subject that they put in the email, something bad is in that email. And sometimes our first instinct is to not look at it because I just know it's going to be a problem and it's going to be something big. And we don't look at the problem. And yet that's exactly what we need to do in order to know that, is it a problem or is it not a problem? Because maybe it's not a problem. But when we don't look, we don't give our body any chance. We've let that train become the runaway train, and it's going to take us all the way through stress and probably shut down, and we haven't even read the email yet. I have heard so many different stories of this aspect of, I'm afraid to look. I don't want to look. I don't want to see it. But yet what happens is that we then become programmed, and our nervous system is literally wired, Christian, to go from that startle all the way into the trauma response. And it happens in milliseconds because it's become our neural pathway that's been learned over time. Let me share a really important study. I know that you know this. This is one of my favorite ones to share, though, because it really highlights how programmed we can be without realizing it. Dr. Seligman, famous psychologist, did a study with dogs. And he put a group of dogs in a container that had two sides, separated by a low barrier that the dogs could easily jump over. One side had a mat that provided electrical shocks. The other had no mat. They were safe, completely safe. They would not be shocked on that side of this container. He takes this group of dogs, and for half of them, he ties them up to the wall, puts a leash on them, ties the leash to the wall, and he turns on the shocks. Every single dog does what it is designed to do, which is tries to escape. This is a life threat. This is uncomfortable. This is a stress. Every single dog tried to escape. Those who were not tied up to the wall easily escaped, jumped over this low barrier, and they're on the other side, and there's probably treats over for them on the other side. The dogs that were tied up, they kept trying, and then they realized there's nothing I can do. That's hitting the wall. And they had that inner freeze, inner shutdown. And what did that look like? They repeated the same experiment. This time, they didn't tie any of the dogs up. Same thing. He turns on the electrical shocks. The dogs who had previously been able to jump over, it wasn't even a stress for them anymore. It was just a startle because, I've been here before. I know how to escape. I know what to do. They jumped over. It wasn't even a stress for them. They had responded to that startle response, and been able to respond and overcome the danger. However, the dogs who had previously been tied up, they no longer even tried. In fact, they laid down on the mat and whimpered. As I read that study, I can put myself in the shoes of those dogs, and I can realize that I have had times in my life when I looked at everyone else and I'm like, why is life so easy for them? I must be different. I must not deserve a good life. I must not deserve a good relationship. I must not deserve, I must not be worthy. And so why even try? And that's the problem with the startle response, because we can literally be programmed for our neural pathway to experience a startle, but we have this programming in us from previous experiences that says, you're not worth it. Life is always going to be hard. You don't deserve it. You shouldn't even try. And it takes us from startle all the way into the trauma response within milliseconds, simply because that's how we've been programmed to respond. We don't even give it a chance anymore.
Is there a moment that we can break it?
You're going to love this. They don't share that in the experiment. And it drives me crazy because for me, this is the most valuable aspect. And if we applied this to trauma, it would change the whole industry. What they did, they took those dogs and they said, okay, how can we retrain them to jump over this small wall? Let's give them treats. Clearly, that is the solution. They gave them all the treats in the world. They dangled them over the wall. They dangled them over on the other side. Treats did not change their neural pathways.
Wow.
I know. It's a key lesson for parents. Treats did not change that. You know what actually they had to do? Somatic work. You're not going to be surprised at that at all. They actually came to these dogs and they had to move their legs for them in the motion, in the movement that they would need to take to jump. They had to teach them how to jump again by helping them relearn that movement. They literally had to go in and say, startle, move, and here's how to move. And that's the only way that they got those dogs, but they did. That is how they got those dogs to be able to now be able to jump over the wall with the shocks. Somatic work.
Somatic work. So
not mindset, not incentives, not treats. That stuff doesn't actually work for the nervous system. The movements, the movement patterns of going from activation to shutdown is a somatic implicit memory.
Amen. I love somatic work. That's it. So we have that startle response. Is it a matter of, okay, let me feel my body, and is it just a sensory thing, like noticing what's there and connecting to it and maybe moving through something? Or, I mean, that's literally the only somatic thing. I can't imagine it's not a response unless it's a response that's like the dogs and I actually have to move my legs. I'm imagining moving my legs.
Actually, let me tell you what I do.
Yeah.
I teach this in my course. What I have them do, we get on Zoom because all my courses are online. So we get on Zoom and I say, we are going to practice our startle response today. You should see their eyes, Christian. They're like, oh, I'm already panicking. I'm already stressed about working on my startle response. And what I say is we're going to start with something so small that it's going to barely cause an activation, because we don't want to reinforce this pathway of all activation is too much for me, because that's really what the memory is. The somatic memory is all activation is too much for me. So we need to create such a small activation that it won't automatically take us down that pathway, but we'll be able to choose to do something different. So I have them choose something in their environment that they will drop in order to create a startle response, right? Because a noise or a change, movement, automatically will create that startle response. It's built into us. So I have them choose something that will not create so much activation. When I first tell them this, they're like, oh, well, let me drop a book. Let me drop this. And I'm like, think about this. When you drop that book, how much noise is it going to create? Does your system feel like that would be a high activation or a low activation? I'm like, well, no, that would actually activate me quite a bit. Okay. So by the time we actually get to the practice of this, they have realized that what they need to start with is something like a rubber eraser.
Oh, whoa. Really?
Something that is so small and yet won't make a lot of noise. And then that's what we use to practice. So then we all do it together. We drop whatever it is that we each have. And then I'm telling them, you're going to train your eyes to look at it. So you drop and then look. Drop and then look. And we do this a few times. And now their nervous system is like, okay, I get the hang of this. Drop, look. And so I'm literally retraining their neural pathways to say, when there is a startle, you look, you gather information. So that's the first step. Then after they look, now I'm teaching them, I want you to pick it up. I want you to feel it. Did it break? Is anything broken? Did your life break? Like, we actually need to have the sensory information that we're okay. So I have them do all of this around whatever it is that they just dropped. And then I have them orient to their environment. Did anything else break? Did the floor break? Did the walls break? Did your life fall apart? Because that's literally where our body, where our nervous system will take things if we don't have that moment to actually review and see, what is this and what damage did it cause? So that's how I help them practice the startle response, to bring in those sensory elements for them to use their sight, their touch, their sight in terms of the larger orienting, sense of grounding, and be able to respond differently to something that activates them.
And does this translate, does retraining, does it retrain those neural pathways in one session? Do you have to do this all the time, over months? Like, how does that work?
This is where I think that you and I could go into the biochemistry and geek out on this quite a bit. What does it actually take to rewire the nervous system? One and done is not what the nervous system needs. It's never going to be what the nervous system needs. The nervous system's job is to make life easier for us. So everything that we repeat, it habituates. So it takes whatever we do, whether that's brushing our teeth, driving from work to home, it takes whatever we repeat and it just makes a habit out of that. So then we look at, how long do we need to do something in order for it to make a habit out of it? What I will say is that if your nervous system has inflammation, it's going to take a lot longer to build in healthy neural pathways that will be promoting health. If your nervous system has everything that it needs, you're well resourced with magnesium, with zinc, with B6, you're doing your ozone treatments, your sauna, your nervous system is so ready to help you out because it has everything that it needs. So that nervous system is going to take less time to build in new healthy habits than a nervous system that is just trying to survive the day because it's bombarded with nutrient deficiencies, inflammation, and toxins.
So many of us too. So many of us are suffering with that. You know, we're saying a lot, and I love this because what I'm feeling into is that you're making the nervous system more understandable for people who took biology in college and in high school, and they kind of heard of it. I think I heard of fight or flight, you know? And it's really, it's just so clearly exemplified. And like also how so much of our life revolves around that safety of the nervous system. And are we safe in this moment, in this room, around this person? The startle response is like really potent because we can retrain the way our nervous system reacts. And that's been ingrained since we were children. At what point, and is there a point where older repressed emotional material, does that play a role in how the nervous system is responding day to day?
It drives everything. And Carl Jung was the one who really first brought this to our attention, where he said something to the effect of, you know, what is in your unconscious will drive you and you will call it fate.
That's so good.
So good. And it's not until we bring it to our conscious awareness that we realize, oh, it's been with me all along. I just didn't recognize it for what it was. I called it my personality. I labeled it with different things. I didn't realize what it was. I didn't see it for what it was. And this is where I know you and I share a very similar philosophy around the healing process. And at first, I was so focused on controlling the healing process. And it was one thing after the other of, what do I need to fix next? What's the next thing that needs to be healed? Is there another story? Where do we need to go next? And over time, as I experienced a lot more things and worked with a lot more people, I started to notice these synchronicities. I started to notice how life would bring the next layer to be healed. And it wasn't something that I needed to go chase. It wasn't something that I needed to control. It was really hard for me, being a perfectionist, that I actually didn't need to control this process of healing, but that actually I can relax into the healing process. And that relaxation actually helps me heal faster. When there's so much tension, it doesn't allow things to surface. Things surface when we've created the safety for them to surface. And so then my approach really shifted to, it's no longer my focus to heal. My focus is to live. And it's in the living that I find what still needs to be healed. But I miss that if I'm focused on the healing.
Yeah.
So my question then becomes not, what's the next thing that I need to heal or fix? It's, how do I be more alive? How do I be more alive?
And then it comes.
And then it comes.
That's the beauty of it.
And what comes is what's holding me back. And that's why there's layers. I call the healing journey now like this spiral staircase. You're going to be circling the same themes and topics a couple times. Don't think that you're going to just be able to do your childhood all in one time. No, it's layers deep, and that's actually valuable. There's wisdom in doing it layers at a time, and you don't need to go digging for the next layer. I really discourage people from excavating. Don't excavate your past. Focus on the present. Focus on living your best life today, and what's holding you back from that will reveal itself.
I really resonate with that. And I really resonate with the part that you said that life is going to give you that healing in that layer that you're in. This is something that I've said within, and I didn't know this until I started seeing clients and seeing patterns and listening. And then I derived that conclusion. Whatever layer they're in, I think it's just a frequency thing that's being put out. They're calling something in that exact resonance to move through that layer. It's so potent. Look, like we have like 3 hours to talk about all this, but that's for another interview because this goes really deep. There's a book right here in front of me. What's it called?
The Biology of Trauma.
And we got a month to release?
2 months, September 23.
September 23.
Yes.
Okay. And what we talked about a lot, but what can we expect in this book?
This book is the manual for the human body and how it survives.
Oh, just that?
Just that.
Amazing. So let's give it to every medical student, please.
Medical students, therapists, parents, educators, anyone who really wants to understand their body and how it survives the unsurvivable.
Hell yeah. I love that. We need that. We're not even taught in school, and we need a guidebook. We need a blueprint. We need an understanding. And let's say someone who was never into this language, can they read this and understand it?
I wrote it for that person.
Amazing.
I wrote it for that person who was like me, that I was like, trauma? That's two hallways, down on your left. Like, that is not me. I don't relate to that word. Yeah. I would never want to own that word. And I know that there are a lot of people who do know that they've had trauma, and they have been just as confused about their body. Even just in the last month, I've had 2 women come up to me and say, I feel like my mind has healed, but my body hasn't. And I'm like, this is it. People don't know this information about the body and how it experiences and why it holds on and what it needs then for healing.
Too much psychology, not enough somatics and physiology.
Right.
And that's what we're doing here.
That's what we're doing.
Amen. Look, I loved our conversation. Where can people find you?
They can find me at biologyoftrauma.com. I would love to connect with them. I love to hear them, their stories, where they've had questions along their journey. So please, biologyoftrauma.com, courses, practitioner training,
practitioner training. Amen. Okay, I love that. And your handle on Instagram or?
All under Dr. Aimie.
Okay.
So they can find me, Aimie, I spell AIMIE.
Okay.
At Dr. Aimie, biologyoftrauma.com.
We're going to put in the show notes. Thank you so much, Dr. Aimie, for dropping some knowledge bombs on us about the biology of trauma. Thank you so much for your wisdom.
Thank you.